In this video, I'm going to look at the top 5 McDonald's interview questions and help you plan fantastic answers that's going to land you the job. So the first thing that always comes up is what hours can you work? And this is often where people lose their job offer. So in order to answer this question well, we need to avoid all of the traps. So the first thing you have to do is you have to be honest. If you're not honest, it's going to come back and bite you and you may lose any offer that you get. Next thing you have to do is you have to come across as flexible as possible. They're looking for flexible people, and obviously they're also looking for committed people. You need to be there when they need you. When they're short-staffed, they want someone to be able to jump in and solve their problem, and you want to come across as that person. So some key things to mention is if you can work evenings and weekends, mention that. That's going to massively increase your chance of getting the job. Instead of talking about, commitments that are going to be a problem, it's better to talk about how you've managed other commitments so that you can be there when they need you. If you can work the school holidays, mention it. That's a big problem for hiring managers. And if you can solve the person that's hiring you's problem around staffing, your chance of getting the job way, way up. Also, if they ask you specifically about certain times and you can't do those times, it's better to answer it in this way. So you would say, I prefer to work this time, but I can be flexible, and tell them how flexible you can be. For example, if they say we really need people to do evening shifts and you can't really do evening shifts, you could say, I prefer to do normal business hours, but I can be flexible and it would be possible to do a Thursday night. So you're offering as much flexibility as you possibly can. And always when you're asking this question, follow the last bit of advice. So focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Just try never to talk about what you can't do. People screw up this question massively because they start by saying, I can't do a Wednesday, I can't do evenings, I can't do weekends. And the hiring manager goes, oh, well, that's a big problem. We'll get the person that can. So always focus on what you can do. You come across positive, you come across useful, and you come across flexible, and you'll do well on this question. Second thing, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Typical interview question. There's a simple process that helps you plan a great answer. So the first thing is it has to be credible. If you give a ridiculous answer, you're not going to be taken seriously. So it has to be credible and believable. Good thing to do is make sure it's all mapped out, so you've planned it out, and you're using all of the development opportunities and support that the company has, and that also shows off the research that you've done. So I'm going to give you a few ideas about how to plan this. So you could talk maybe about, getting involved in running a franchise in 5 years if you're going for, higher up positions. You could talk about the road to +1. So what's the next step up and how do you get there? And how do you deserve to get there? How are you going to use your development to get there? And one thing to talk about is McDonald's runs the Leadership Institute. So you could say that you're really enthusiastic to get involved in that. However, not everybody wants to move up, and it's not a requirement that you should be ambitious. So you can talk about being exceptional in your role. So whatever role you're going for, you don't want to go any higher. You just want to be really great at that. And you're going to talk about how in 5 years' time, you're going to be amazing at what you do. A bad answer, however, is something that's not believable or totally unrealistic, that you don't have any plan, so it shows you've never really thought about it. And the worst thing is it doesn't fit with McDonald's goals. So you need to think, what is the person that's interviewing me looking to achieve, and how do I meet that? And the worst thing you could possibly say is not with McDonald's. In 5 years' time, I don't want to be working here. I want to go off and do something better, because it's offensive to the person that's interviewing you, and it's not solving the problems that they're trying to solve by hiring you. Question 3, strengths and weaknesses. So we're going to start by looking at strength. So a great way to talk about strength is to pick something that's genuine. So it is actually a strength that you definitely have. And you also have to have it be very well evidenced. You have to prove that this strength is real, because anyone can make up a strength. Not everyone can evidence it. And the most important thing is it has to be highly relevant. It has to be something that you do every single day in the role you're applying for. So a fabulous answer would be something like this. I am very good at providing excellent service to challenging customers, if you refer to the reference from my previous manager where she recounts and then a story. So this is a brilliant answer because it's got something that is massively relevant to the job. So providing excellent customer service to challenging customers. That's exactly one of the things that you do. Really good strength. It's well evidenced. So you can say, I have evidence to show that this is definitely a strength, and I can prove it with a story and a reference. That's a really strong bit of evidence. And it hits all of those 3 points perfectly. So when you're planning your answer, hit all those 3 points. Let's look at the weaknesses next. So the weakness question is a really tough one. You have to be very careful. This is where you can lose your job offer. So don't fall into the traps. I'm going to show you those traps. So let's start by having a real weakness. So people will say things like, I'm too much of a perfectionist. That is a rubbish answer because that's not really a weakness and it just undermines your credibility. The next thing, you have to be doing something about the weakness. So once you've identified the weakness, you have to talk about actually doing something to sort it. But most important, do not say a weakness that is very important to the job. So your weakness has to be not that important to the job. For example, saying, sometimes I come across a little rude is probably going to lose you that position because they do not want anyone who is rude working in McDonald's. That's one of the things you're going to recruit for is people that are not rude. You're going to screen those people right out. So if you give a weakness that is related to the job, that's going to get you in trouble. So the way that I would plan this question out is I would start by saying one of the weaknesses I am aware of is, and then in the next sentence say I've been working on this by. And if you use that basic structure, you'll have a fantastic answer that hits all of the points you're looking for. Next one, what does customer service mean to you? And I've given you 5 points that kind of give you an idea of the sort of things you should be talking about. So a good start is to just talk about how you're going to be polite, friendly, and professional, because that's kind of the 3 key things that they want to see in an employee that's providing good customer service. You're going to resolve conflicts effectively, because that's one of the most challenging areas of providing good customer service is when customers are angry and rude. And even in those circumstances, you're going to be a great employee and you're going to solve those problems. You also want to talk about that you have very high standards, that your vision of customer service is very high, that you hold yourself to high standards. You're also going to talk about various things that you can do to go the extra mile. And you're going to overall, and this is a great conclusion to put at the end, is you're going to ensure that customer needs are comprehensively met. It's not a bad idea to just memorize that phrase. It's a fantastic phrase that really sums up what you're trying to achieve in customer service. And a great tip is you want to prepare an example, a real world example of great customer service. The best example would be something you've done in a previous job. If you haven't had a previous job, think about the best interaction you have ever had with a company and why that person on the other side was amazing. So that shows that you understand what good customer service looks like. And finally, very obvious question, extremely likely to come up. Why do you want to work at McDonald's? And I've given you a nice tick list of all the things you want to hit in your answer. You want to show off that you've done lots of research, you understand what the company does, you want to talk about your skills and how that relates to working at McDonald's. You want to talk about the development opportunities. We've already looked at those with things like the Leadership Institute and how you're going to use those opportunities and why you want those opportunities to be available. You want to talk about your interests. For example, if you love working with customers, then that's a great, interest and helps explain why you're applying for this job. But overall, when you're planning out this answer, you want it to come across enthusiastic. You're actually passionate about working there. And a few suggestions of things you could talk about on the side that you should have a look at. For example, an employee referral. So if you know someone who works there and they've told you lots of good things, that's a great thing to talk about, being part of a Fortune 500 company. And you can also talk about what we call brand affinity, which is your love of the brand and their products, which is another great thing to talk about. And so at the very end of this video, here's a bonus one after we went through top 5. Here's some questions you could ask, and you may want to memorize 1 or 2 of them. And I'll let you have a read through those on your own. So pick the ones that are most appropriate to you and ask those. Last thing to note is you want to always ask one question that is directly related to something that's come up in the interview. So while you're going through the interview, just have a think. At some point you'll go, there's a question there, remember it, ask it at the end. So you're responding to something that they've said, and it shows that you're paying attention and switched on. So hopefully this video has been very helpful to you. Best of luck in your McDonald's interview, and thank you very much for watching.